Imagine a tower so large it has its own zip code, a $4.2 billion glass mountain piercing the Philadelphia skyline, designed to be the ultimate workplace of the future. Now, imagine that same building is currently bleeding $30 million every single month. It is a financial black hole that is swallowing the fortunes of some of the most powerful investment firms on the planet. But here is the kicker. They can't sell it because nobody wants to buy a $4 billion liability. They can't keep it because the operating costs are higher than the revenue. And they can't even demolish it because the sheer scale and the location of the structure make a controlled teardown practically impossible without destroying half of downtown Philly. This is the story of a mega project that has become a permanent $4 billion scar on the landscape. This is the story of a building that literally cannot be saved. To understand how we ended up with a $4 billion ghost tower in the city of brotherly love, we have to look back at the era of the tech boom office. A few years ago, there was this massive push to build vertical campuses. The idea was that if you built a building with enough amenities, gyms, organic cafes, rooftop parks, and high-tech meeting rooms, people would never want to leave. These weren't just offices, they were lifestyle hubs. Philadelphia, traditionally a city of brick and historic stone, wanted in on this action. They wanted to prove they could compete with New York and San Francisco. So the plans were drawn up for a massive gleaming monolith that would serve as the headquarters for a giant telecommunications and technology conglomerate. It was supposed to be a symbol of Philadelphia's rebirth as a global tech hub. The engineering was quite frankly insane. We are talking about a building that uses more steel than 10 Eiffel Towers. It features the world's tallest cooling system of its kind, massive glass elevators that travel at 20 miles per hour, and an interior design that looks like something out of a futuristic spaceship. But as the building rose, the world began to shift underneath it. By the time the final glass panels were being polished, the way the world worked had changed forever. The remote work revolution didn't just dent the office market, it nuked it from orbit. Suddenly, a building designed to hold 15,000 people every day was lucky to see 1,500. Now, $30 million a month in losses might sound like an exaggeration, but let's break down the math of a failing megaproject. You have the mortgage on a $4 billion loan. Even with a decent interest rate, that interest payment alone is astronomical. Then you have the climate control. You can't just turn off the air conditioning in a glass skyscraper. If you do, moisture builds up, the custom wood paneling warps, the electronics fry, and the building essentially rots from the inside out within months. You have to keep a skeleton crew of hundreds of cleaners, security guards, and engineers just to keep the lights on and the elevators moving. Add in the property taxes and the specialized maintenance for those high-tech cooling systems, and you are looking at a cash burn that would make a Silicon Valley startup blush. But why can't they just lower the rent and fill it up? This is where the engineering becomes a trap. When you build a prestige tower, the floor plates are often designed for massive, open-plan tech layouts. They aren't easily partitioned into smaller offices for law firms or dental practices. The elevators are programmed for high-volume traffic through central lobbies. To turn this building into anything else, like apartments or a hotel, would require an engineering overhaul that would cost another $1 billion. You would have to rip out the entire plumbing system because an office building has bathrooms in the center of the floor, while an apartment building needs plumbing in every single unit. You would have to replace the glass because office windows don't open, and residential codes usually require natural ventilation. It is a purpose-built giant that is allergic to any other purpose. So, if you can't fill it, and you can't convert it, why not just get rid of it? This is the most fascinating part of the disaster. If you wanted to demolish a building this size in a dense urban environment, you have two options: implosion or piece-by-piece disassembly. Implosion is out of the question. The building is surrounded by historic landmarks, subway lines, and critical infrastructure. The vibration alone from a collapse of that magnitude would shatter every window for 5 blocks and potentially compromise the foundations of neighboring skyscrapers. Disassembly, on the other hand, would take years. You would have to build a custom crane system on top of the building just to take it apart from the top down. The cost of labor and safety equipment for a 3-year demolition project in the middle of Philadelphia would likely exceed the remaining value of the scrap steel. It is literally too expensive to take down. The investors are caught in a nightmare loop. To stop the bleeding, they need a tenant. To get a tenant, they need to spend more money on upgrades. But they don't want to spend more money because they are already losing $30 million a month. It's a game of hot potato. where the potato is made of molten glass and costs $4 billion. Some of the original lenders have already walked away, selling their debt for pennies on the dollar just to get the liability off their books. But whoever buys that debt just inherits the same problem. They now own a building that is functionally obsolete before it's even 10 years old. If you walk through the lobby today, it feels like a scene from a post-apocalyptic movie where the civilization disappeared, but the robots are still working. The digital displays are still flashing. The fountains are still running. The expensive art on the walls is still lit by designer spotlights. But there is nobody there. It is a cathedral of commerce with no worshippers. The silence is deafening. You can hear the hum of the massive HVAC systems, the sound of $30 million a month, literally being evaporated into the atmosphere. The impact on the city of Philadelphia is just as bad. A building this size was expected to bring in massive amounts of tax revenue and thousands of commuters who would spend money at local restaurants and shops. Instead, the area around the tower has become a ghost zone. Small businesses that open nearby in anticipation of the tech crowd are failing because the crowd never arrived. The city is now faced with a giant glass hole in its economy. They can't force the owners to do anything because the owners are technically following all the codes. They're just failing financially. Engineering-wise, the building is starting to show the signs of its neglect. When a building isn't fully occupied, things start to break in strange ways. Pipes that don't have water flowing through them regularly begin to corrode. Air ducts that aren't being cycled properly build up dust and pathogens. The massive glass panels, which need constant inspection for stress fractures, are sometimes overlooked because the budget is being slashed. There have been reports of glass rain from other similar skyscrapers, where a single nickel sulfide inclusion in a glass pane causes it to spontaneously shatter and fall hundreds of feet to the sidewalk below. Maintenance isn't just about aesthetics, it's about public safety. And when a building is bleeding money, maintenance is the first thing that gets cut. This Philadelphia tower is a warning for every other city currently building speculative megaprojects. We are entering an era where the tallest or most expensive is no longer a guaranteed win. It is a liability. The flexibility of a building is now its most valuable asset. If a building can't be an office, a school, and an apartment all at once, it is a dinosaur waiting for an extinction event. This tower represents the peak of rigid architecture, a design so focused on one specific vision that it cannot survive a change in the world's climate. What makes this truly tragic is the human effort involved. Thousands of construction workers spent years of their lives in the heat and the cold to build this. Engineers spent hundreds of thousands of hours solving some of the most complex structural puzzles in history. Millions of tons of raw materials were hauled from across the globe. All of that energy and effort is now trapped in a structure that serves no purpose. It is a monument to a future that never happened. It's like building a massive gold-plated harbor in a desert and then realizing the water is never coming. Some people have suggested radical ideas to save the building. Could it be a vertical farm? Could it be a massive data center? Could it be a giant indoor park? The answer is always the same. The floor-to-floor heights are wrong. The power requirements are too high. Or the structural weight limits of the floors weren't designed for heavy machinery or thousands of tons of soil. The optimized nature of the engineering means it is optimized for only one thing, and if you change that thing, the whole system fails. It is the architectural equivalent of a proprietary charger. It only works with one device, and if that device goes out of style, the charger is just expensive trash. As the months go by, the bleeding continues. 30 million here, 30 million there. It's a slow-motion car crash that has been going on for years. The banks are eventually going to have to take the big loss, which means admitting the building is worth less than 20% of what it cost to build. When that happens, it will send shockwaves through the entire commercial real estate market. If a $4 billion tower in the middle of a major American city can be worthless, then what does that mean for the thousands of other smaller office buildings across the country? The story of the Philadelphia Tower is a story about the end of an era. It's the end of the office as a temple. We are seeing the birth of a new kind of urban landscape, one where these giants might stand as ruins for decades. Imagine 100 years from now, looking back at these glass towers and wondering why we built things so large and so fragile. They will be the pyramids of the 21st century, except instead of being built for pharaohs, they were built for corporations that don't even exist anymore. For the residents of Philadelphia, the tower is a daily reminder of the risks of mega projects. It looms over the city, reflecting the sunset in its $4 billion worth of glass, looking every bit like the success it was supposed to be. But those who know the truth look at it and see a sinking ship that is staying afloat only through the desperate cash injections of its owners. It is the building that can't be saved. Not because we lack the technology to fix it, but because we lack the economic reason to try. In the world of engineering, there is a concept called sunk cost. It's the idea that you should keep pouring money into something just because you've already spent a lot on it. This tower is the ultimate sunk cost. Every dollar spent to keep it standing is a dollar that could have been spent on something the city actually needs: schools, transit, or affordable housing. But because the building is too big to fail and too big to fall, the resources will continue to be sucked into its glass vacuum. If you're listening to this and wondering if your own city has one of these vampire buildings, the answer is probably yes. From San Francisco to New York to London and Shanghai, the bleeding is happening everywhere. This Philadelphia case is just the most extreme example of the phenomenon. It's a cocktail of bad timing, architectural inflexibility, and financial arrogance. It's a $4 billion lesson that we are all going to be paying for in one way or another, as our cities struggle to adapt to a world that no longer needs these sky-high monuments. So, the next time you see a massive glass skyscraper rising in your city, don't just ask how tall it is. Ask how it gets taken down. Ask what else it can be. Because if the answer is nothing, then you might be looking at a future ghost. The Philadelphia Tower stands as a sentinel of this new reality. It is a masterpiece of engineering that failed the most important test of all, the test of time. It is a giant that is frozen in place, too expensive to live, too expensive to die, and way too expensive to ignore. As we look at the final stages of the current financial drama surrounding the building, there is a sense of inevitability. Eventually, the money will run out. Eventually, the lights will dim. And when that happens, Philly will have to decide what to do with a $4 billion mountain of glass that nobody can use. It will be the ultimate challenge for the next generation of engineers to find a way to dismantle or repurpose a building that was designed to be permanent. Until then, the bleeding continues. $30 million at a time, a silent heartbeat of a failing mega project that the world is still trying to figure out how to bury. The skyscraper is a testament to the fact that in the 21st century, being too big to fail is no longer a safety net. It's a cage. The investors aren't just losing money. They are trapped in the very structure they helped create. The glass that was supposed to offer a view of the future has become a mirror reflecting a colossal mistake. It's a story of how the most advanced engineering in the world can still lead to a dead end if it isn't aligned with the way people actually live. As we track the progress of this disaster, keep your eyes on the Philly skyline. If the lights start going out floor by floor, you'll know the bleeding has finally stopped, and the real mystery has begun. How do you live with a giant that won't go away? How do you move forward when a $4 billion failure is casting a shadow over your entire city? This is the reality of the failing mega project, where the goal isn't success anymore, it's just survival. And for the Philadelphia Tower, even survival is starting to look like an impossible dream. The complexity of the litigation involved is another layer of the mess. There are hundreds of contractors and subcontractors tied up in legal battles over unpaid bills or disputed work. When a project this big stalls, the entire economic ecosystem around it collapses. It's not just the owners, it's the plumber, the electrician, the interior designer, and the guy who supplies the glass. All of them are caught in the gravity well of this black hole. It's a reminder that when a mega project fails, it doesn't fail alone. It takes an entire industry down with it. For now, the tower remains a beautiful, tragic monument. It is a feat of engineering that deserves to be admired for its bravery, but also studied for its blindness. It's a reminder that the most important part of any building isn't the steel or the glass. It's the people who are supposed to be inside it. And without them, even the most expensive skyscraper in the world is just a very, very expensive way to block the sun. We will keep watching the Philadelphia Tower, not for its successes, but to see how the world deals with a $4 billion problem that refuses to be solved. This is the new age of architecture, where the ruins aren't thousands of years old. They are brand new and still bleeding. Keep watching, because this story is far from over, and the ending is something no one could have predicted when they first broke ground on this glass giant. The lesson for us all? Build for the people, build for the planet, and most importantly, build with the knowledge that the world won't stay the same forever. If you don't, you might just find yourself owning the next $4.2 billion mystery that nobody, no matter how much money they have, can save.